That is a bop.
Who's in charge of the music for this podcast?
Yeah,
It's so good.
Who is? Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the second ever video podcast for the Pixel Professor podcast. I am Dr. Eric Hansen, otherwise known as E-Rock Tenor, and I am with
Dr. Jeff Swyphd, always known as Swyphd.
always known, always all the important circumstances, like when you're dispensing democracy and destroying bugs. And even though that announcement today was, maybe we won't get into that because that was kind of sad about the whole, I don't know,
Losing the major order. Yeah.
Oh,
it's embarrassing.
man. Well, just not just that, like the whole like charging for things that I don't know. We'll have to do a whole podcast episode on the monetization and stuff like that.
But the important thing is remember which day today is.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even put that together. Okay, that's okay. Everything's okay. Oh my gosh, everything's okay. Oh, it is April 1st. We should say the date.
Yes.
Just because when generations from now, when people are watching these videos, April 1st, 2024. This is, however, not an April 1st prank podcast, but that was a prank. Oh my gosh, I was genuinely upset when you sent that to the group chat that they were democracy dollars or whatever that was. Oh, wow.
And basically they were turning the game into pay to win, and yeah. I'm glad that it was a joke because
I am too. That was going to be bad.
But the problem is that it's too believable.
It really is. That seemed like an actual viable thing because of what we've been through.
So
Especially
many games
any of you
do
Star
that.
Wars fans out there, Battlefront fans. It was terrible. It was just terrible. Your mic is a little bit far away, by the way. You're a little soft.
The most downvoted comment in Reddit history from our friends at Battlefront 2.
Oh, gee whiz, man!
It makes you earn the pleasure of the joy of playing the game. But
Yeah,
for
it's
paying
dumb.
for things or
Yeah.
whatever the guy said.
Just takes it. Yeah, that comment, most arrogant, misguided man. What a terror. Anyway. So I guess we kind of already. My first question to you is going to be, what are you playing? And we kind of alluded to one of those games. But are you playing anything else beside Helldivers 2, or is that it? Is that just that you're all in?
I'm still into Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. That's a fun game.
Yeah,
that's a good thing where you just got 15 minutes between things and just dive in and play some Helldiver or Deep Rock Galactic Survivor.
I still feel like your mic's a little soft. Like we need more direct aiming. You just have such a lovely voice.
Is that louder or softer?
I don't think it changed. It does feel a little bit like the optometrist office. It's like 1 or 2. And I was always so nervous that I was going to say the wrong number and somehow they were going to get my glasses prescription wrong. Because it was like the same, but it was almost, anyway, like...
Just input. Whoa.
Hey, whoa, there you are. You're here. You're welcome to the Pixel Professor podcast, Dr. Swyphd. That's fantastic.
Oof.
I like
I can
it.
hear myself, and I'm not a fan of... Ooh, now I hear myself more.
Oh,
okay. Now, can I hear you anymore?
That's good. I think
that's what I have to... That's my trade, is I can either hear both of us or none of us.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That doesn't really make any sense.
How come turning up my gain makes me hear my own voice?
Is there some kind of monitor on? Like, are you recorded through two things?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I do rather enjoy the fact that your mic takes some kind of center stage. Let me see. I don't see anything on here unless there's something on your end.
Is that better?
Whoa! Now you're a little hot there. But it's not coming through. Wait. Are you set to the right thing? Because now it doesn't say. I'm getting no, like, this setting adjusts. Oh, that's just my ability to set your thing. Like when you talk into it, does it show like the little indicator meter at how loud you are or not?
Oh, there we go. Oh, wait. Did I fix it? No, I didn't fix it. Okay, there's the gain. Oh, hey. I don't hear it anymore.
Hey,
okay,
good
that's
job.
Awesome.
But are you getting an indicator on your side? I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm not getting any indicator other than that it's recording.
But it's not showing like a little like green, yellow indicator thingy?
Nope.
That makes me a little nervous, but I can hear you, so I'm assuming everything's okay. Should we assume that? I think we have to. It is a little weird that I can't see an indicator there. But I can hear you. So I think that's all we can count on.
Yeah.
And it says you're being recorded.
Okay.
I think we'll just hope.
I'm being recorded.
That would suck, though, if you're not coming through. Like, that would really suck.
Rebellions are built on hope.
It does say your default speaker is your Yeti stereo microphone. You need to change your speaker.
No, that's right. I plugged in my headphones into my speaker.
Oh, because you do that. That's why you can hear it, though. That's why you can hear yourself.
Yeah, but I didn't used to be able to. I guess maybe I just turned up the gain, and so then now I can hear myself more.
But it does say your microphone is the Yeti stereo, so I sure hope. I hate that you don't have an indicator. I just hate that. I hate it, and it's going to make me nervous.
I mean, it does. There's a thing that says actual recording quality is high. Actual recording is higher quality, so I do have that.
It says that too, and I can hear you, so that's got to be a sign of something good happening.
Well,
we'll find out.
Do we want to stop it and see if it's working? I think it's working.
No, I think we need to go. We need to do this thing.
Now we have to do 15. I think we can budget 15 seconds per slide. Because didn't you create 483 slides?
Something like that. Yep.
Sweet. I'm so excited to see this.
Okay, so yeah, let me as a back. We do need to get right into this because there's so much to do. So I think this is one of the first things we talked about when we talked about doing a podcast. Is I always wanted to do a thing where I treated a video game the same way I would treat like a symphony or something in a music appreciation class. I taught music appreciation for many, many years, and actually will probably end up teaching it again in the fall. And I just it's always been one of my favorite classes. As part of my doctoral studies, I actually took a class on how to teach music appreciation. And there's just something so fun about introducing students to an art form or at least a piece that they've never heard before and then or at least never truly listened to before. Because like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony or Beethoven's Fifth Symphony or something, like everyone's heard Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. But like how many people have heard it? And when you get to go in there and actually train someone's ears what to listen for and listen to, it's one of the most fulfilling, rewarding, awesome, amazing, wonderful experiences when they come out of that like, whoa, and then they want to listen to more of that themselves. So I always wanted to do that with a video game. I don't think I knew what I was getting myself into when I made the decision to do this. Side note, you may want to like mute when you're typing and stuff, because that mouse click, now your gain's up high as your mouse click and your typing is really loud. Yeah, very good. Sounds like you are. It's beautiful. It's like the percussion of our lives.
Very good.
It's okay. But I don't. It's not loud enough to like. I'll just edit this part of it out. And our discussion about your microphone.
That's the best part.
It is the best part, and it is a recurring theme. So anyway, I decided. I think I mentioned this last week. That I wanted to do that. I just picked a game that I love, that is popular, and I just picked Skyrim. Skyrim being the game that I thought would be a fun one to sort of initiate this process on. And first of all, we've been chatting for a while about like a framework for analysis. Like when I'm analyzing a symphony, there's like, we're going to talk about form, we're going to talk about instrumentation and orchestration, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've been working really hard on coming up with that for video games. I actually kind of think what we've come up with so far is pretty exciting. I applied it to this game and talk about a rabbit hole. Like I have just been buried in this thing, and I appreciate this game and just games in general so much more than I ever have. So I think we're using this new system. We're going to launch into this thing, and we're going to see if we can get these slides to work. I really truly
One thing
do feel
about
like
this game.
Oh yes, please.
We talked about this beforehand, and we specifically picked a game that I have never played.
Which is wild to me. Like, how many people who are into games have never played Skyrim? I've got to believe.
And I'm one of them.
I don't know the specific number. It is 6, and I'm one of those 6.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm kind of
excited. The other 5 are under the age of 4.
I'm kind of excited to see how, just like in the music appreciation class, it's a similar thing. You've heard of the game.
Yep.
You've probably seen videos, or like, especially in the days where it felt like every meme was about like Fustroda, or like the dragon shout, or all the glitches that are in the game. Like there was running gags about that. You haven't seen any of those?
There were no memes.
Oh wow! Or you're one of the 6 people.
Ooh, yeah, that's
actually
true.
That number is probably smaller, to be honest. But so here we go. We're going to try this thing. We're going to try these slides, and we're going to hope they work. because I've not done this yet on a podcast, but we're going to find out if this works. Can you see those okay?
Oh, beautiful. Yes.
I wonder, can I like it? Ooh,
okay.
It's a bigger frame. And now you can really
Elder
see. Look
Scrolls 5, Skyrim.
5. Yeah. Pixel Professor Breakdown. I wanted to find something that was more alliterative. We'll have to think of something cooler for next time.
Breakdown.
Pixel Professor Analysis.
Preakness. The horse races already have that.
It's kind of getting worse. Okay, outline for today. There's no way we're getting through all of this in our 1 hour episode time today, but at least wanted to break it down, and we'll see how far we get, and hopefully it makes some sense where we cut off. But in terms of how I wanted to do the analysis, this is very similar to how I would treat a piece of music. Some context, like what was happening when the piece was released, a little bit of history and background behind who did it, and a little bit about the company, who the creators were. Normally, if it were Beethoven, I would talk about what's going on in his life and stuff, and we won't really do that. There's too many people working on things on a video game to do that with. But anyway, we'll do a little bit of background on them, and then we'll jump into the analysis itself. And I'm hoping that this will work both in video format and in audio format. There'll be some things that we'll have to describe as we go for those who are just listening. But and we'll definitely need a ton of feedback as to whether or not this is engaging and worthwhile and something you enjoy listening to. And I sure hope that it is, because, again, I had so much fun making this. All right, context. The game came out in 2011. Just a few things going on in the world in 2011. In March, it was the big tsunami in Japan and the nuclear fallout and breakdown there. They're in the news again right now. Prince William, Kate Middleton, married. And I'm sure, do you consider yourself a royalist? Are you into, do you watch The Crown? Are you into, knowing everything about the British royalty?
I'm into not knowing everything about the British royalty.
You purposefully, even if you knew something, you would take it out. I don't want to know anything about those guys. Who cares?
Kate Middleton is one of the developers of Skyrim, right?
You never know. Yeah, and she is, there's a lot of conspiracy theories spinning around her right now. Maybe that was what she was doing. Maybe she's working on the Elder Scrolls 6, and that's where that's why there's so much controversy around the Elder. Did we just break some crazy news on Pixel Professor
Podcast? Here first.
Kate Middleton, lead designer and developer on the Elder Scrolls 6. This is probably how you get taken down.
We'll probably edit this out in post, just so that this MI6 doesn't come after us.
Because that could happen. Because they're listening. MI6, we know you're there. Welcome. Okay, so May 1st, Osama, speaking of secret special forces.
Let's try to hit all the keywords. Terrorist, bomb plot.
Yes, that's right. Ooh. This is going in a different way. Yeah, that's right. Nuclear fallout. We talked about that. Yeah. Fallout will be a topic of discussion as well.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Sorry. This is great already. Oh, we can't even get past. We said a minute a slide. We're in trouble. May 1st.
It was 15 seconds. We're screwed.
Even worse. May 1st, Osama bin Laden was killed. This was interesting, I thought. 2011, Twitch launched. I actually wanted to see if anyone was streaming, because Twitch lists the main top 5 to 10 games every year that get streamed, and Skyrim is nowhere to be seen on those top 10 lists. Can you guess which one shows up the most? Based on my cursory research, not Tetris. Though Todd Howard, we're going to talk about Todd Howard. I'm probably going to say Tim Howard, the legendary U.S. men's national team goalkeeper, many times when I mean to refer to Todd Howard, the also legendary game director and designer who worked on all these Elder Scrolls and is the head of Bethesda and is likely a multi-billionaire. Anyway, maybe if he's getting paid for the games, that's a whole other topic. Anyway, so Twitch launches. Minecraft, as you might imagine, is the game that shows up the most on Twitch. Have you heard? Good.
I have actually played that game.
Oh, good. There are games that you played. This is good for our podcast and the future of it. October 1st, Steve Jobs passes away in 2000. That's crazy to me that was 13 years ago that Steve Jobs passed away. So anyway, so there's some context. Also, one of the things we'll have to dig into, this I found this so fascinating, is how basically historically we divide up each of these generations of console gaming going all the way back. Well, I'm not going to spoil that. We'll talk about that later. But this is considered the 7th generation of console gaming, which lasts from about 2005. And basically it goes to when they stop supporting the updates and everything else for that specific console. So, for example, we're actually in 2 generations of consoles right now, 8th and ninth. We're in the middle of both of those because the consoles that came out in the next 2 generations are still being supported, like PlayStation 4 and 5, for example. But
in 2011, we were in the 7th
generation of console gaming,
right in the middle of it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Cool.
And Xbox 360 was the console that launched the 7th generation in 2005, and then PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo Wii, which I remember my wife staying overnight at Walmart to be one of the first to purchase a Nintendo Wii, which we still have this old Nintendo Wii that we had. That was what? Man, 18 years ago? That's crazy. Whoa. What the man? Anyway, so these are the main consoles. That of course the PC doesn't fall into necessarily any particular generation. Maybe someone's done that work, but I haven't been able to find that. And Skyrim itself, and most of the Bethesda games at their heart are PC games. They're designed mostly for the PC. They say they are basically PC gamers at heart. That being said, what's going on in consoles, and this will be another topic for their podcast as well, really does drive a lot of how even PC games are designed. Because often, even though a console is perfectly balanced and has specific technical, you could say, advantages over PCs in that they're already fully balanced, they're less expensive, things like that. That being said, a PC usually can do a lot more, but they often have to program down to a console, or will even delay the release of a game if they've programmed so far past the best a console can do now. And Skyrim is actually an example of that. They were considering delaying the release of Skyrim if the Xbox 360 wasn't going to be able to handle the new things that they were doing. So that will happen sometimes, and often, again, changes how they think about a game. And we'll talk more about that as we go. Did they
release Skyrim on both consoles? I know they didn't on Wii, obviously, but PlayStation and...
I meant to look this up. I can't remember if it was exclusive or not. I should look. We'll have that looked up by the end of the podcast today. No, I don't know. I'll have to look that up as we go. I know that there's been some controversy surrounding Elder Scrolls 6 and its exclusivity, and maybe we can talk about that later. But other games being released this year across different platforms and consoles. Some of these were favorites of mine. Portal 2, by the same makers of Half-Life, and it's a really clever game. Ocarina of Time was an old Zelda game that got remade to be 3D. We'll talk about 3D gaming in 2011 versus original 3D gaming. Deus Ex Human Revolution. Did you ever play Deus Ex? I was such a massive Deus Ex fan back in the 90s, and this was supposed to be like maybe similar in scope to what Skyrim was supposed to do for the Elder Scrolls. Deus Ex Human Revolution was supposed to do for Deus Ex. I was so disappointed in this game. I'd love to hear from other people, if you're Deus Ex fans, how you felt about this game. I feel like this game kind of killed the series. It was such a popular series, and then this one had so much potential. There were some good things about it, but on the flip side, Batman: Arkham City, massive success. One of the other main successful games of this year, and other Batman games in this series have been equally successful. And then the Gears of War series also continued in this year. Gears of War is a big Xbox title. I didn't play a lot of Gears of War, but anyway, November 11th, 2011, that's when our game here, Skyrim, was released in the midst of all those other games.
11.
It's wait, yes.
I'll bet you a nickel they did that on purpose.
I wonder what day of the week that was. 11.
Hopefully
11.
the
11th. Well, I mean, like Tuesday, Wednesday.
The 11th day of the week is what I was going. Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah, no.
Doesn't work.
You were so clever for a minute, and then it was gone. That's the story of our lives, I feel like.
That's the story of my life. Yeah.
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 um,
Frame that, because that's the one wise thing for this whole episode.
that's right.
Coming from me, at least.
No, I that's not true. I mean, it'll be followed up by something that like negates it and cancels it for sure. But background.
That's fair.
Bethesda Game Studios. Pre-Elder Scrolls, before they started with Elder Scrolls 1, we'll talk about that. They were mostly a sports game creator. Wayne Gretzky Hockey was pretty big. Their Road to the Final Four game was also, these are probably their two most successful titles before the Elder Scrolls. It was kind of a ragtag group. People came in and out and in and out. Early reports are it was a pretty miserable place to work, just because of the turnover. That happens at a lot of video game companies, but Bethesda was particularly rough. And then Elder Scrolls 1 Arena comes out in 94. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I'll show you a little bit of gameplay from Arena. Arena is at kind of a cult following. I was not introduced to the Elder Scrolls until Morrowind. Morrowind completely blew my mind, and I always loved the idea of open world gaming. Morrowind for me was the first game that accomplished it, and I just got completely lost in that world in Morrowind. And it's interesting. We'll talk like contextually in terms of who the creators were on Morrowind, and maybe there's a reason for that. But before that, the Elder Scrolls 1 and 2, you had Arena and Daggerfall in 94 and 96. Arena was actually designed to almost be like a fantasy meets sports game, where it was going to be like a party of adventurers going from arena to arena in this made-up world of Tamriel, which is where it's set. And you were going to fight different creatures and level up and keep fighting more and more creatures. Actually, it would have been, I'm kind of intrigued by what that game would have been. That being said, the creators were all big-time D&D players, decided they really just wanted to make a role-playing game. And it was interesting because they talk about early days having discussions with the other big role-playing game makers, and they were like, it's too hard. You can't just jump from sports games to role-playing games and expect to be successful. This is going to bomb. And Arena didn't do particularly well. Daggerfall also didn't do particularly well, though Arena did develop this sort of cult following. This is even pre like true 3D days, at least for them. They broke into that pretty quickly by Daggerfall, but Arena itself, we'll talk a little bit about the 3D technology they were using. I have a little bit of gameplay from Arena. The music is from the game. This didn't capture the sound effects, but I think it gives you a pretty good idea of what it felt like. It's particularly fun for those who are into the Elder Scrolls and can see the visual. You're going to see the map of all of Tamriel. And what's fun about the map is you're going to recognize these different locations that became the focus of the locations later. Like you'll see Morrowind, you'll see the Imperial District, which is where Oblivion is set, and then you'll see Skyrim on the top. And in Arena, you actually had access to all of those places. And it was an early days open world game. So the music is so fun. We'll talk more about sound and audio and stuff like that. But just to give a flavor. See, there's your map. You can see Skyrim on the top, Morrowind off to the side. So he's actually zooming in on Skyrim and going to, I think he goes to Windhelm, which is a famous location in Skyrim. Oh, there he goes. Oh, it is white. Is it? Oh, he goes to Whiterun. The loading screen.
Huh. Cool.
And then you show up in the city. Lots of text. You can't even really look up and down. You can just go, because there isn't, again, it's not necessary. I have to look this up. I don't believe this is true 3D.
So this presentation was so good that I just really quick ran and changed my clothes.
Yeah, same. That actually, like, it was so good the whole world shut down. Like the great power outage. Like everybody tuned in at the same time. And just it shut everything down.
So many people were watching that it actually like blotted out the sun for a little while.
Yes. If you looked out there right now, you would see. Yes. Okay, so For you, just we were going through context. 2011, we were talking about Bethesda Games, used to be a sports game company, and then the funny thing is, since I put this together, now I've been digging even further into like the Elder Scrolls lore and the original writers, but purposely decided this thing is already so packed that I wasn't going to put it in. So we're going to have to do like future tags is on to this. Taganses to this. So we just talked. The main thing I wanted to show you was just a little bit of the gameplay of the original 1994, not even 3D yet, Elder Scrolls title Arena. So let's see if I go in here. And I have the fun music. This is in-game music. This one doesn't have the in-game sound effects. The only ones I could find that had playthroughs of people with the sound effects, they were talking over it. So this is the best I could do. So here we go. There's like all these different regions. Like this is, of course, Elder Scrolls 5. Morrowind is Elder Scrolls 3. Imperial Province ended up being Oblivion or Elder Scrolls 4. All the news coming out about Elder Scrolls 6. But the main thing is there are, I don't know, like seeds of what's coming in the role-playing genre to come. I mentioned that when Bethesda went into this world, they were sort of laughed out of it at first. Like, there's no way you can make it good by the people who made like Ultima and Wizardry. I think the Wizardry people in particular were like, this isn't a world you just enter into. It's really, really, really difficult. And they probably felt like they were correct. Arena didn't do particularly well. They got the release date wrong. I think they wanted it to come out in Christmas of 93. It didn't happen. And so it comes out in 94. Compatibility issues, another thing. It didn't do particularly well, but it became sort of a cult classic. Oof. Calm down. All right. Wow, these slides are going crazy. All right. So to get into the actual background of the creators themselves, there's so much that could be said about all of, and this is such a small sampling of the people who worked on this game, but just some of the key players, and I don't mean the key creators. Todd Howard.
So these are the people who played the game, is what you're saying?
Yes, that's the only ones.
And they played them using keys, not the mouse.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly what I meant. You got it.
Okay, got it.
So, director Todd Howard, a controversial figure for fans of Bethesda. He's kind of a cool dude. We'll talk about him. Some of the lead designers, Bruce Naismith. I hope I say all these guys' names right. Kurt Kuhlman and Emil. I've even heard his name said. I'm still going to get it. The way you would say it in Italian, this shows what music nerd I am, would be Pagliarulo. But I think they say Pagliarulo, I think is how they say it. Those people, whoever those people are. Lead programmer, Guy Carver. Lead composer, he's the guy I could talk about way too much. Jeremy Soule, lead composer. And then the lead artist is Matthew Carfano. I will talk about him and some of the other people who worked for him as well. Just as sort of I put a disclaimer here. There are so many strong feelings about each one of these people when you get into forums and videos and such. It'd be way too easy to get into the weeds about who these people are, how fans have reacted to them. So the purpose of this video, at least, isn't to dig so deeply into any of the controversies surrounding some of these people. The majority of that controversy is professional and creative. In the case of Jeremy Soule, there's unfortunately some other controversy that came out of the Me Too movement as well. But for the rest of them, it's mostly just creative differences, either that they had with each other or the fans have with them. A lot of these people have come and gone from Bethesda, either like in Bruce Naismith's case, he joined the company, left it, and then came back, and now he's left it again, et cetera, et cetera. Just a little bit about director Todd Howard. Feel free to, if you're watching, to pause the screen and if you want to read this limited bio that I made of him. He, in the 80s, loved Wizardry and Ultima. Basically his story is he played Wayne Gretzky in college and he used to drive by the Bethesda games every day, asked them for a job. They said no. And you have to have a degree. They told him graduate. He graduates, comes back. They deny him again. He does some work for some other companies. In 94, he gets hired by Bethesda in IT at first, but then works his way over into production. And since then, he wasn't really involved with Arena, but loved Arena. He said it was one of his favorite games, part of that sort of cult following for the game. But now is really the guy in the driver's seat for everything that is Bethesda and has been for some time. He was involved with Terminator Future Shock, which is actually an important game in gaming history. His first Elder Scrolls title is Daggerfall. It's Elder Scrolls 2. And then his first sort of lead position was in Morrowind, which was a huge leap forward. And we will talk a little bit about his change in philosophy when it came to working on Skyrim and just sort of that direction. Okay. Other people I could talk about briefly. Bruce Naismith is a really fun guy. If you're into D&D, he actually worked for TSR, which is the company that makes D&D, and he was hired back in 1981. You ever see those old Apple computers, like Apple IIs, the famous Apple II and Apple? He was hired to make RPGs for the Apple II, so he knew how to program, and also was given the opportunity by TSR to do some writing. He was part. Did you ever read those Dragonlance books? Did you read Dragonlance? Like 90s, early 90s?
I don't know.
It's a whole sort of subgenre of D&D. They made tons of books. Me and my family back in the early 90s were huge into Dragonlance. Read everything. Anyway, and he was part of that creative team. He comes on board, works on Elder Scrolls 2, and then add as a lead writer on Elder Scrolls 4 and 5. He also did some writing on Fallout. You could talk about Kurt Kuhlman as well, lead designer, one of the lead designers on all of the Elder Scrolls titles since Elder Scrolls 2. That's when the big change happens. And then Emil Pagliarulo is a really interesting figure as well, really interesting creative writer and designer, and has been with Bethesda since 2002, and you can see all those titles there that he's worked on, Fallout 3 and 4. Fallout might be his sort of number one association, even though he has been associated with, and in some really, really important ways, with the Elder Scrolls. In particular, title like Fallout 76, which he oversaw the creation of in the beginning. Too much controversy. He's been involved heavily in Fallout. Okay, other key people. I again could get really lost in the weeds here. You can see on here all these people have been with Bethesda for a long time. In particular, Guy Carver with them for a very long time. Their lead programmer. Matthew Carafano, the lead artist on many Bethesda titles, also been with them since the late 90s. And then Jeremy Soule, his music, man, I could talk about it forever and ever and ever. An extremely prolific video game composer, has also written some limited stuff for TV series and such. Is often referred to as the John Williams of video game music, because of how prolific and good he is. My introduction to Jeremy Soule was in the Guild Wars series. I don't know if you played any Guild Wars. It was really just a purely MMO game, but tried to make it so that even though it was MMO, you as a player of the game would actually have an impact on the world. That was a lot of people's complaints with like Warcraft. I always hated in Warcraft where I could play that game for hours and hours and hours, win all these, complete all these quests, and nothing changed about the world. It wasn't like my character being in, whether it was Star Wars Galaxies or Warcraft, World of Warcraft, or any of those that I played. Whatever you did, you really didn't have an impact on the world. But Guild Wars tried to make it so that there was you and your party had an impact. Like the game itself changes as you progress, and in some really creative ways. And the music is particularly good, and that's Jeremy Soule. And then he starts with the Elder Scrolls series with Morrowind, with the very famous theme that we'll talk about as we go. But his scoring is just fantastic. All right. So here was the big thing. And this is, I would actually, for the nerds who are watching us, which I'm assuming is going to be the only people who watch or listen to us, big time nerds, one of the things you and I have talked about is trying to figure out some kind of framework for the analysis of a game. Like when I'm presenting, like when I'm doing a music appreciation class and I'm talking to people about Beethoven or I'm talking to people about Mozart, I've got a framework for how I'm going to analyze them. If I'm analyzing an opera, this is how I analyze opera. And I'm going to talk, or a symphony, we're going to talk about form, and we're going to talk about orchestration, et cetera, et cetera. One of my favorite classes to teach is a class called Hearing the Movies. And in that one, we like break down the tracks of a movie, like the visual track, the dialogue, the sound effects, and the music, and we sort of analyze each of those. One of the coolest things about analyzing video games, and this comes from the framework of Gesamtkunstwerk, right, is trying to find a way to, in some standardized way, analyze and present on a game. And so this is the one I've sort of initially come to. We've talked about it a little bit through text and such, what this might look like. And Swyphd, I'd love your thoughts on it too as we go. This might be a way to start. There might be a more efficient way to analyze it. I did find that there was so much to see and find and do and get excited about on every single one of these factors. So we're going to talk about presentation, what I call motivators, what keeps the game moving through time, or motivate the motion of the player through time. Input, user interface is the third thing. Feedback, and this is specifically how the game provides you with feedback, and then social elements, and we'll talk about those. And of course, in an open world solo game, the way we talk about social elements might be unique, but anyway, so those are the main big frameworks. Todd Howard actually has a quote: "We can do anything, but we can't do everything." So I found on every single one of these points, if I wanted to actually analyze everything, we would be here for months and months straight, and I would still love every second of it, and it would have been amazing. But that being said, I believe it or not, as we go through this was my attempt to diffuse or reduce down to the most important, exciting elements of Skyrim. So I hope I've done that. We're going to find out, I suppose, depending on how I do here. And I'm very doubtful that we'll get to all of these today. But first, on presentation, I do love this brief little quote. This is actually an interview with Jeremy Soule. And you and I have talked about this. We may have even said something about this on this podcast. I think one of video games' greatest obstacles is the fact that they're called games, video games, right? Because they're more than that. And Jeremy Soule actually addresses that in this brief little interview.
That's a game to really get into. And I think there's a generational loss or a gap right now. People don't realize that video games, the word video game, let's face it, we're stuck with it. We're not going to get away with those words. But it's more of an interactive experience. It's an interactive, I know this sounds really generic, but what it is it's like being in a movie as opposed to watching a movie. Games are so much richer than they used to be. The storylines are amazing. We have access to production values and methods that match feature films. I think the entire understanding of what a video game is changing. It's changing really rapidly. But maybe game companies need to spend more marketing dollars.
So just this idea that the video game label isn't enough. I don't any reaction to that, like video games being more than just games.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he's right that we're not going to get away from it. And also, I don't know if the name, I'm part of the thing is anything that is relegated to leisure time is going to be condemned in a society where wealth creation is valued more than anything else. So
that's a good point.
We could call it video work, but people would still say, well, how much value did you create for the shareholders by spending an hour playing a video game? And you'd say, well, nothing. And they'd be like, well, then it's not valuable.
Interesting.
Like, well, yeah.
Video work.
I think it's a good point that he's, there is a stigma around it, but I think the stigma comes from the fact that you're not making some owner of some, you're supposed to simultaneously generate value for other people by buying their stuff. But that's not really providing value to society. The way to provide value for society is by making money.
Making money, right? It's the only way.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting to me, for example, that something like opera, we don't say the word opera and go, oh, waste of time. Like opera is seen as a sort of, and maybe some people would, but it's like generally held as this cultural phenomenon. And in its heyday, especially in the hands of certain composers and creators, it was the blockbuster film of the day, right? It was the thing that people would spend their leisure time doing because that's what they had access to. I wonder if someday the video games will take on a different, when they become the academic, focus. Though here we are, academics focusing on it. Like I don't know if maybe we are hastening the demise of video games, by putting it into an academic field. So sorry,
be careful.
everyone. Better be careful. So this first part presentation is going to be very sort of filmic, like movie-like in its analysis. And he talked about this kind of game in particular is presented like a film. Now, lots of it is. It has the same aspects in terms of there are visuals, and those visuals can come in the form of graphics and animations, and et cetera, et cetera. There is dialogue, there are sound effects, there is music. All of that is designed to react to the player, but is still a huge part of the creation of the game. And every game has, well, I guess not every game per se has dialogue, but most do. Most games have music, visuals, and sound effects. So even though in this case with Skyrim, it is particularly cinematic, all games have these elements to them that can be analyzed. And a case that I want to make, and this is a case that I make in hearing the movies, is this idea that creativity is mostly enabled by technology. So if we could go on about this forever and ever and ever, but back when they were making cave paintings, they had access to a pigment at first, right? And then maybe two, and then maybe three, but they were naturally occurring in the world around them. Zoom forward thousands of years to the Renaissance, and they weren't limited by pigment in any way. So they could draw and create and craft in whatever way they wanted. They had mediums to do that in 3D and 2D, et cetera, but they didn't have, and they were writing wonderful music, but they didn't have a way to record that, right? And every time we create, we enhance the artist's ability to fulfill their imagination. And in the case of video games, it's the same thing. The artists and creators involved with Skyrim have unlimited imagination, but they're limited by technology. Less so than they had been in Morrowind, and the pace that this technology progresses is insane. Even if you compare Starfield today to Skyrim, like it's just a completely different visual world. And I think one of the things I want to highlight is, at least briefly, how history and technology have adapted up to 2011 to make this possible. To kind of bring this along in the framework of how a game is created, we talked about a vision a little bit. So creators sit around, they have a vision for a game, they've sketched it out, or at least in their minds, right? We want it to be in this world. All of these guys, as we'll talk a little bit more about later, are all tabletop D&Ders. And so they've got this idea for, we want to create something that feels like that, but is in its own unique world. And then one of the first places you go, whether you're making a fantasy film or a fantasy game, is to the artists, the visual artists, to the concept artists in particular. Great example, like Star Wars never would have gotten off the ground without a concept artist who could take it and move it into a world where people could actually visualize it. So this concept artist, having a good concept artist, is key to the ability of a creator to actually make their vision come to life. I don't know if we'll watch this whole thing, but I wanted to give an example at least of Matt Carafano. And we don't get to watch much of Adam Adamowicz, who is a particularly incredible concept artist who actually passes away right around the same time that Skyrim is released, so he never actually gets to see his concept art in the game. But just a brief look at concept art in this particular game.
The visual direction for this game is very different. With each game, we try to really reinvent the series and really take it a huge step further and just the visuals, graphics, everything about the game. And a lot of that is
this is Matt
direct,
Carafano, by the way.
Reaction to the previous game. So Oblivion was more kind of standard European fantasy, and with Skyrim we wanted to do something, that kind of same feel wouldn't fit for this game. We want to do something that you were living in Skyrim. It is different. It is the home of the Nords, so everything is based off that. With Skyrim, we've come up with something we sort of internally call Epic Reality. And what that means to us is it's dramatic views wherever you go. With every, landscape region in the game, we try to make it look amazing and unique. But definitely the landscape overall is something that we're pushing to get you that sense of epic reality where you really are amazed at this world you're walking through. The character design in this game has been one of our biggest features we wanted to improve. We really tried to take that in a whole new direction and put a lot more of our effort into the look and feel of the characters. Each race is much more unique than they have been in the past. We want you to look at the races and clearly say, oh, I know, that's a Redguard, that's an Imperial, that's a Nord, that's a Breton. You can tell the differences between all the races. All the races are back. They've been greatly improved, and there's a lot more customization than we've had in any previous game for you setting up your character or all the NPCs you meet. There's new systems for allowing decals and scars, face painting, and just a lot higher resolution assets for generating all the characters in the game. We really look to improve the creatures in this game. The main difference, I think, is we really tried to root them into this world. You should be able to look at a creature and know, it lives there and it makes sense to be in this location and it stands out from the other creatures in its behavior and why it's there. We like to balance things out so you have creatures that can, go all over the different areas of the world. Some fit in dungeons, some fit in exteriors.
And just to give you a sample, here is one of the designers working on just a little bit of just seeing an image of him shading one of his concepts here. And again, we could watch the rest of this, though I did want to just take a brief look, even if it was just, at some of the art of Adam Adamowicz, again, who passed away right after, basically right when this game was released, and was not able to really see any of his art come to life. But these are just, if you go, we'll include the link to his work, to his Flickr page in the show notes. But his work is just this concept. He mentions the word epic realism. That design quality comes up over and over and over and over and over again. And we're going to talk about how that actually shows up in the game. I just realized I'm showing some things here and it's not... Share this tab instead. There it is. There's some of his work. It's just phenomenal. Like, I went into that building in Skyrim, and I guess we've already prefaced this that you haven't played this game, right? We mentioned that already.
We have not.
So shame on you. Look at what you're missing. Looking at this work. The handcrafted look, we're going to come back to this, that sort of dichotomy, that combination of epic and real, we're going to come back to that a lot into this presentation. Anyway, all right, so there's Adam Adamowicz, there's the initial idea. Next, again, I just went down so many amazing rabbit holes. You take from the concept art, you hand it all over to programmers, and then they have to take, based on the technology and the access to technology gives those programmers the ability to either fully realize the concept art or partially, right? This goes for movies too. When you watch I don't know if you're like me, did you watch the hours and hours and hours of Lord of the Rings behind the scenes videos and stuff?
Some of them, but I don't think I don't think I watched all of them.
I don't know. You're missing out. Well, you got some serious work to do here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, seriously. So, what was fun was to go back and sort of trace the arc of video game graphic creation, and we're just gonna lightly touch on that all the way back to 1975 when we were doing text-based games and the creating of what are called MUDs. These are sort of multiplayer user dungeons where you can like go in and have multiple people typing in text. And did you ever play a text-based game? My wife
Yeah.
her favorite text-based game was a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text-based game. And you had to type like the exact right phrase, right? Or you couldn't
Yeah.
like pick up sword or whatever, and it would say, I don't know what a sword is. Pick up knife. I don't know what a knife is. Pick up dagger. You pick up the dagger, right? Like you
Yeah.
had to say the exact right things. Did you have a favorite? Did you have any favorite text-based games? Do you remember?
I can't remember the names of them. I
Oh.
think I only ever played one, and it was like it was exactly like that. It tried to
Mhm.
guess, look around the room.
Yes.
It's like, nope.
What is
you,
it?
you
What is a
can't.
room?
Yeah, exactly. Look around the space. Oh, okay.
Me and some friends of mine in high school, it's sort of like 1995. I took a basic class with my friends, and we like programmed a text-based Star Wars game. Wish I could find that. It was an old 3.5-inch disc. It's got to be somewhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I even like made it so it had like MIDI music, and there was a yellow screen like of letters that kind of clunked down across the anyway. So fun. And then 1980 was the beginning. This is interesting. We've been talking about roguelike games for a long time. With they're called roguelikes because they're like the game Rogue, made in 1980.
Oh, I see what they did there.
Yeah, see? Roguelikes. And basically, these are procedurally generated games where, as you can see that little picture there, they take ASCII symbols like slashes and hashtags, well, number signs, right? And lines and dashes and stuff, and make a dungeon. And then your little character, however he was represented, you could use the arrow keys and walk him around, and you'd walk over a dot, and all of a sudden on that dot there would be just like in D&D, like you've walked on, like when you walk onto a hex and there's a goblin there or something like that, that would happen. Or you found a treasure chest or whatever else. But it was different every time, again, because it was procedurally generated. We're going to talk about the difference between, a little bit, procedurally generated games and Skyrim. Skyrim was purposely not procedurally generated to create this sense of epic realism, because you make some trade-offs there. Vector graphics, don't have to talk about what those are. Full motion video. Did you ever play like... we talked a little bit about Mortal Kombat, right? Where they take actual... video of people moving, right? So like when you would almost kill someone and they would sit there and bob back and forth, it was an actual visual of someone. And of course that motion looked great, but it really meant you were limited interaction wise with what they had filmed, right, of that character doing. Basically, then we move into 2D graphics that are like, this isn't moving into, these have been around for a while. The other kind of graphics are like 2D bitmap style graphics. They're definitely limited by the resolution of your monitor, either top-down or side-scrolling games, and these just use reusable little sprites, right, or tiles that are programmed to do to move in specific ways based on which direction they're facing or how they're interacting with the world. And then we get into 3D in the 90s, first sort of fake 3D, and then there's some real debate out there about. Well, I should say that I have so many exciting thoughts. I just had to put them all together. So like Wolfenstein. Did you ever play Wolfenstein or Doom or any of those original games? Oh, dude, what games have you played? Where have you been?
Have you heard of the game Minesweeper?
Yes, absolutely.
That was as violent as my games could get up until about 2 years ago.
Well, then you definitely would not have been allowed to play Wolfenstein or Doom. Like those are particularly...
Or Mario.
Mario is very violent. Like you're squashing people's heads and taking shrooms.
Taking shrooms.
Yeah, that's right. And growing and abilities and powers as you take them. Dang, what in the world? Well, just to inform you then, in the early days of like Wolfenstein 3D, it looked 3D, but only because the picture you were looking at was 3D. There were still tiles. And when you would move forward, you're just sort of like, you couldn't use the mouse and look around. That was actually one of the early games that could do that, was the Terminator game that we talked about. Future Shock was one of the initial ones that could do that. But this, I think this is somewhat disputed, but the first actual 3D game was likely the 1996 game, the Super Mario 64, not like 2.5D. This was actual 3D. Have you played Mario 64?
Yes.
Okay, gotta say, whew, we're gonna like never find common ground here on which games we both played. Um, did you like it? Were you like a Mario 64 fan?
I played it, but not very often, and I mean not very much, and I like probably didn't beat hardly any of it.
Was it because like you didn't have it, or only friends have it, or because you were bad at it?
Probably both. I don't think we got Mario. I don't think we got Super Mario 64
Yeah.
for the 64. I was busy playing NBA Jam or
Ooh.
NBA Live. That's what I
Oh,
played a lot.
great game.
And Madden
Yes.
2002 or whatever.
Whatever those were.
Mario
Yes.
Tennis was another one that I played on the 64, but
Like, oh, not the Wii Tennis, but the actual
No.
like previous Mario
one
Tennis.
of my favorite games of all time is Mario Tennis. I love that. I was so good as Wario. No,
Really?
no. I wasn't. Waluigi. I was good at Waluigi.
Those are two very different characters. I mean,
Yes.
are they? Yes.
In tennis particularly.
Like reach and movement and all of those things. Seems like Waluigi would be a baller when it comes to tennis.
Oh, he was. They
Yeah.
each had different skills.
Yeah.
Waluigi was great at sneaky, like spin
Of course.
shots. Anyway,
Of course he would.
so good.
That
So
sounds
good.
like Waluigi. Well, I played a decent amount of Mario 64, incidentally, long after it came out. But it's very much the first 3D game. It's hard to control the camera. Like if you don't get it just right behind him, my biggest problem in terms of my coordination with the 3D aspect of the game was just constantly jumping the wrong direction and missing the Goombas and then getting killed by them or whatever else. Like it took me a long time to even kind of get used to the controls. I don't know if I ever did beat that one. Maybe we need to do that sometimes. But once you have actual 3D gaming in the late 90s, now the sky's the limit. And well, processing power is the limit, right? Between graphics cards and video and actual onboard memory and all that, and actual processing CPU power, that's the main limiter to 3D graphics. Once you can actually do the thing, it's just a question of making the controls more easy to use, and then like the detail and everything else is just dependent upon your processor and your rendering ability. So game engines. Just a quick description of a game engine. So basically your game engine, you've done this part, right? You've given the game to your concept artists, your concept artists. Now you've given it to your programmer, and what your programmer does is your programmer basically, especially your lead programmers in the beginning, are setting up the rules that the whole team has to follow, right? And those are things like the graphics abilities and limitations, how the audio is going to work, and how the logic is going to work in terms of how characters and everything else are going to work in the world, how the actual physics of the world are going to work as well. And then some companies have actually, there are companies who have made engines that nowadays almost any programmer can just even sign up for, like Unreal or Unity or et cetera. You can sign up for these and just use a pre-made engine that's decided all that stuff for you. It's decided the graphics and audio and logic and everything else. In the case of Bethesda, they created their own engine called the Creation Engine, and that's been sort of the driving, engine for their whole setup for a long time, for better or for worse. The Creation Engine has been much maligned. It does certain things really, really well, and then it does other things not so well. They had been using a system called Gamebryo, and then they created this Creation Engine. It eventually allowed for like cool god rays of light, like volumetric lighting. In the case of Skyrim, there were lots of issues, and basically if you wanted lighting, they had to draw it in. So they've got this whole Havoc, this behavior mechanism, which improved character animations. They upgraded their Radiant AI, so they have the independent NPCs, which is also problematic. They upgraded this is the cool thing, this Radiant story idea, where an NPC can dynamically create a quest for you. The parameters are the same, and they're very familiar. So anyone who's played Fallout 4, and have you played Fallout 4? Have you played the Fallout games at least?
I have played none of the Fallout games.
My word, we have some gaming to do. Of course, these are not social games, but I have an idea that came from Mavin that we'll have to maybe we need to like have you play Skyrim for the first time, and we need to make that like a let's play video and see someone reacting to Skyrim for the first time.
That'd be cool.
Anyway, in Skyrim, the creation engine this time created the way had this whole new dynamic foliage rendering system in terms of how the trees moved in the breeze and stuff. But one of the big issues that this and so many other Bethesda games, they're trying to break new ground with AI in particular, and how animations and such interact with the environment in this creation, and that has led to many glitches. I found so many glitches videos. Most of them had way too much like swearing and other stuff going on, or weird sound effects played in, and it would have taken too long. If you want a really good laugh, just get on YouTube and look up Skyrim glitches. I did have to show you one. I did choose one on this particular quest because this one had me going. Are you ready? This is one of my favorite Skyrim glitches.
I am just kidding.
So just like you do, you jog on top of a horse.
That's awesome.
You're not supposed to do that. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that because I've never played Skyrim.
And then, of course, you interact with the bear, and the way to try to defeat a bear is to flip in circles on the front of the horse. Watch the bear's head. I just love how the bear's like
awesome.
His head is bobbing with the and then he starts to fly. See, this is a cool ninja move. Like, this belongs in Mortal Kombat. The characters. Oh, now the bear attacks you.
Wow.
You kill the bear, and then he's fine. He's on his horse, like nothing happened.
Wow.
So anyway, that's one of.
That's cool.
You have to look up all the glitches where you like get launched into the sky, or there's some great videos out there of people imitating the way NPCs move in the background. I have to put some of those in the show notes. Just them turning at weird angles as they watch, like, or the person you're talking to is doing one thing, but then there's other people moving behind them, like walking into dangerous situations. Or anyway, it's just the glitches are one of my favorite things about Skyrim. But there's an example of the creation engine having a few issues, and it had more than just a few issues. But there's a start there. Ooh, what's happened here? All right, so Epic Realism. Back to this idea and presentation. So their objective, their goal, much of Oblivion, the game that came before, a lot of at least the environment was procedurally generated. So basically, you could like. Say you could select a huge area of ground and say, turn this into grass. Follow these rules and turn this into grass. One of the objectives with Skyrim, and Todd Howard talks about this in one of the interviews that I watched, was you could zoom in on anything and it would look unique and handcrafted. Every flower, every tree, every bit of armor, someone painted that. Someone drew that by hand. So it does have this very handcrafted look. Even the lighting effects had to be hand-drawn, for better or for worse. But one of the things that stands out about this game, and some of these pictures, it's hard to find images and such that are from the actual vanilla game and that aren't modded. So some of these are and some of these aren't. But again, you can look at almost every aspect of everything in this game and find someone's hand in it. And as it says on the previous slide, so there were games coming out at the same time, maybe you could even say like Batman, Arkham City, that had better quality graphics. The goal here was depth through realism, epic realism, not necessarily having the most stunning graphics of all time. So again, you can interact with everything. You can grab everything. You can steal just about everything. Like my kids are obsessed with stealing cheese. I don't know why that is or where that came from. One of my kids decided, I'm going to steal a block of cheese. And then every one of my kids since then, when they play Skyrim, they've all become a bunch of cheese thieves. I don't know where that comes from. But the fact that you can just see a block, and lots of games, right? You're dictated what you can like look at and interact with. In Skyrim, you can just interact with everything and steal
Just
anything,
take the cheese.
including cheese.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, right. Well, who doesn't like cheese? So let's see. What else can I say? This is just designed to show a little bit of the ambience of the world. There's a lot of fun videos out there if you ever just want to relax, like maybe you're doing homework or reading a book or something and you want to just do so in Skyrim. You can watch one of these videos. One of my and it has like Jeremy Soul's music in it, and it just sort of floats around the scene. This is I believe this is Windhelm. Yes, Windhelm in full 4K 60 FPS, which all had to be modded later. But in one of the interviews that I watched, I think it was the guy who created Windhelm, talked about how he spent so long crafting every single little tiny individual element of the game, from the stones to the lighting and the windows and the fire and everything else, and people would look at it and go like, oh, that's really amazing, that's really cool. And then one guy comes in later and designs some fog and some mist that comes through, and people just lose their minds, right? Like once it had a little bit of an element of ambience and atmosphere, that's where the depth comes from. And he simultaneously loved that and hated that. After all of his work, all a guy had to do was add some smoke, Yeah. But anyway, this has all kinds of different, some of my favorite shots from Skyrim. The northern lights in the background, and the light in the gateway, and these are all actual locations in Skyrim.
Wow!
So highly recommend.
Wow!
I highly recommend anyone play this game and experience the epicness that is. Okay. So any questions? Any thoughts on the visuals of the game? Are you intrigued by the visuals of this game?
I am. I am intrigued.
Okay. I don't know if I believe you yet, but okay.
I want to fight a bear. I want to fight a bear and flip on a horse.
Flipping in circles in the front of a horse. Absolutely. All right. So the visuals are epic and they are real. That's the objective, right? Put those two things together. It needs to feel like you are actually in this sort of Nordic land of Skyrim, based on Vikings and all the other stuff.
You got sucked into this question of which is the first 3D game.
Ooh, tell me about that.
Well, there was this game called Descent.
Yes, that's the other. Ugh, I don't know, man. Yes, tell me about it. You can go ahead.
But then there was also a game first. There was also this game that a bunch of people were saying was the first 3D game, and it was called 3D Monster Maze.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one. Is it
was
actually
like
3D?
Doom. It was emulated three-dimensional experience based on strange stretching and whatnot.
Oh.
According to a Reddit thread. But all of this reminded me of this game that I played from 1996 called Chex Quest.
Chex Quest? No, what is Chex Quest? No, tell me about this game.
I think it would count as a 3D game because you walk through. Anyway, it's the Chex cereal.
What?
They made a game based on the cereal Chex.
When did it come out?
1996.
Oh, and as it says, is a non-violent. Oh, but see, this isn't actually. This is a good example of not actual 3D. It's like quasi 3D. This was actually your non-violent version of Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah.
This is Wolfenstein 3D with Chex cereal. Oh my gosh. We need to play some of this. I want to play.
You can get it on Steam.
Chex Quest.
It's free to play. It came out in 2020 on Steam, but it came out in real life. I got the CD from Kellogg.
Okay, this is hilarious. Total conversion of the more explicitly violent video game Doom. So this is like a
cereal.
This is like a version of it based on. This is using the Doom engine or based on the Doom engine. Okay,
but it's not 3D. Is what you're telling me.
My whole
life was a lie.
It is a lie, a total lie. All of it. Just so you know, this is one of the things we're doing.
I know.
That actually sounds like a great way to end this episode, to tell you that your life is a lie, including how you feel about how video game music is made, and we're going to prove that wrong in the next episode.
If you can. You can
if
try.
the challenge accepted. But yes, I feel like we need to end on some footage of Chex Quest. Is there any like Chex Quest gameplay footage? Gameplay? Ooh, there it is. Oh my gosh. Okay, this has not been vetted. Are you ready? Are you ready to see some of your childhood?
It's going to be graphic.
This is it's going to be graphic.
There's going to be Zorching.
Oh
okay?
no. Are we okay showing some Zorching?
There's a bunch of different Zorching devices that you can earn to Zorch the Phlemoids.
Ooh, choose difficulty. Oh, here we go. Yep. So, what is this? Oh dear, that's exciting. That's a little bit too exciting. I'm going to turn the volume down.
Yeah, oh yeah, you had a spoon. That was your melee.
You melee with a spoon?
Yeah.
Wait, what is that weapon that he has in his hand? It's like a taser.
It's a Zorcher.
A Zorcher? It's a taser.
It's a Zorching device. Yeah, it's a taser.
It's a taser. This looks just like Doom. You did play Doom. You didn't even know it. You were just Zorching. What are you Zorching anyway? What is that thing?
Phlemoids.
Oh, now you got the rapid Zorcher. What is it called?
Phlemoids.
Phlemoids? So the thing that happens when you have too much milk, basically, is what you're fighting against in Chex. What is it called again? Chex Quest. You get little health dudes. This is
beat
thrilling.
The level. Oh, here's the thing. The Phlemoids are from another dimension, and what makes them evil is that they eat Chex.
Oh, the Chex that you would be eating, they're eating it for you.
Well, no, you are Chex.
Wait, you are Chex? Oh, so they're trying to eat you.
Yeah.
Because you're Chex. You're a humanoid version of Chex.
Yep.
And your parents let you play this. Like, this is a little intense. I don't know. This is... Wow. It is kind of funny, though, when you
score
think...
goes up.
Zorch... Oh, there it is. It says it right there, Zorchers. Oh, so like that little dude in the middle of the screen on the bottom, that's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're Chex shaped with eyeballs. Dude, you just found some vegetables. I never put vegetables in my Chex cereal.
And we would be called a Phlemoid.
Well, if I had a nickel. Well, there you go. Okay, that was thrilling. There is some work to do.
That is going to be the top link on our show notes is Chex Quest HD.
Chex
the Steam link.
Quest, and this is a full 35-minute playthrough. So we're going to put this playthrough on there because who doesn't want to see that?
Nobody doesn't want to see that.
Nobody doesn't want to. That is correct. So again, I think, okay, so we've barely gotten through the first part of presentation, the visual part. Epic realism is a thing to remember. So I guess in the meantime, in this week's wait for the next parts of our analysis of Skyrim, play some Chex Quest.
Wait, so are we going to edit this together so that it's all one episode, or are we going to... Is it going to be separate? Oh, you're telling me to play Chex Quest.
No, I'm telling the world to play Chex Quest.
Well, I mean, that world needs to play Chex Quest.
Yeah, I think the world would be a better place if they played Chex Quest.
Yeah.
You know? Well, look what happened when we all played Doom. If we had been playing Chex Quest instead, which is the same game, the not real but 3D looking game, Chex Quest.
We could have solved global warming by now.
Man, would have.
Stupid Phlemoids.
It's their fault.